kicked the week off. Had a very productive off week last week. I think we did a great job in our fundamentals with some game prep. Got better in a lot of areas, in my opinion, skill areas and big areas. Just from fundamental execution, physical toughness. I thought we had a good hard week of practice. Looking forward to this week. Clemson will have a ton of challenges. I mean, they're still very dynamic on offense, all the different formations and sets and the way they get the ball to people and quarterbacks can run. I mean, there's nothing they don't do. I mean, they throw it deep, they throw it short, they throw quick screens. Quarterback runs. Have two quarterbacks, Stout and Watson, both do an outstanding job. They got great skill guys out wide, big, tall wideouts, fast wideouts, backs, good solid line. I mean, Chad Norris and Dabo, them do a great job. Defensively, Brent does a wonderful job there. Played great in their second game there. Played really good against Georgia for 2 or 3 plays in the game and late. They really, because Georgia only had 14 points going in the fourth quarter, scored on offense because that was on a kickoff return. And then they broke a couple runs. But very dynamic up front. Grady Jarrett's a heck of a player. Vic Beasley's a heck of a player. Deshaun Williams has been there a long time. You know, Watson and Corey Crawford and Barnes, those guys seem like I've played against them ever since I started coaching here 8 years ago. When they've been there a long time. Anthony started a long time. Of course, Tony Stewart's a heck of an athlete. Goodson. Curse, I remember recruiting from here in the state. Mackenzie Alexander's a guy we recruited very hard, great corner. Jenkins, Smith, I mean, those guys, they do a great job. They're a very good football team, very dynamic football team. They got size, they got power, they got athleticism. Coach very well, and I'm sure they're going to come in here ready to play, and we're going to have our hands full. We're going to have to play a great football game in all 3 phases, and hopefully keep improving on what we've been doing. Question?
Just any update on the injured defensive lineman?
I'm sorry?
Update on the injured
Yeah,
defensive lineman.
Eddie Goldman will be practicing today. He'll be ready to go. And I think now and then will be close. They'll be doing some things, he and Shanks, but they'll both be in limited participation most likely. But Eddie will be full go. So will PJ and Darby.
What did Eddie hurt? Was his ankle? Or?
His ankle, just like swelling's out, gone completely. I mean, if we'd practiced Friday or Saturday, he could win.
Just how important was the bye week going into conference?
I think it's very important. I mean, one, it kind of gets you in a mindset to go into your conference, not just because it came, we had a couple nicks and knacks, but, you know, it kind of transitions from the non-conference games into your conference games, how important they are and what goes on, and you know, just setting the tone for you know, what you're here for. The first goal, again, is you have to win your division, you have to win your conference, and it starts this week. Question?
Jimbo, obviously the game last year got out of control.
Yeah.
Is that game how useful is what happened in the game in terms of?
Well, I think it's useful in the, you know, schemes in which you use and judging players' talents. You know what I mean? I mean, how the plays went, or if it was a fumble cause a turnover, you know, whatever it may have been, or us making a play, them making a play. But you still judge how they played your schemes and also the talent level of their guys of actually, because you actually played against that exact guy that was in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Whether if he's big, he's strong, he's fast, and then look at his film this year, how's he improved, what's he doing different, does he do the same things? You know, from that standpoint, it's very critical. And, you know, that game's always counted because we were successful in the game and it was a good game. I mean, from that standpoint, I think it's always good to be able to see yourself when you play at a very high level mentally and physically and emotionally what you're capable of.
And did you feel like that was one of the first times since you've been head coach that the team was ready for a big game in terms of handled all of the?
No, I think 2 things. I think it magnified in that all 3 things hit at once. You know what I mean? And not us playing well, but sometimes you'll play very well, but the other team plays well, and you don't see that. You know what I'm saying? There were some critical mistakes by them that allowed, plus us being on our A game or A+ game, that allowed those things to take off. So I mean, there's other games I felt we played extremely well, but the other team played well too. So, you know, just because you don't see the lopsided score doesn't mean you don't play as well in some of those games.
How did that benefit you guys moving forward, that kind of performance against the
Well,
team?
it gave you supreme confidence because you knew the caliber of the opponent and how good they were in it. And the rest of the season bared that out also for them going through the rest of the season and winning the Orange Bowl and doing what they did. And also playing in an environment hostile like Clemson. I mean, you know, the type of environment that is to play in, and your kids can, if you can overcome that and focus and concentrate and, you know, do those kind of things there, that you're capable of doing anywhere else in our schedule.
And I think you said that last year that game was a turning point. Was that more national perception, or was there something internally?
I think nationally perception it was too, but I think what I was excited about, what told me a lot about our football team was when we hit the practice field that Monday, They'd already forgotten that game. I mean, you could tell they weren't dwelling in the past. They weren't relishing in all the accolades that were being thrown their way. We were just back to business and practicing football. And that's when I really felt good about our football team, knowing that had the capabilities of keeping that focus week in, week out.
So last year at the AC Media Days, you talked about how the SEC always seemed to perform on the big stage because they were used to those big stages.
Mhm.
They played in them a lot. How much, with Florida State and Clemson now where you guys are, how much does that help?
I think it's tremendous to play in it, again, another game day. Now they're going to be a sold out crowd, and I mean even sold out crowd for Citadel. Even though this one may be a little louder, but still walking into a sold out stadium, walking into an atmosphere and environment that's very electric. You know what I'm saying? This one will be much more. I know that, but I think that all builds to your program and what your kids can handle and what they can adapt to. I think it's very critical for it.
Jimbo, talk about the challenge of preparing for two pretty dynamic quarterbacks that Clemson's going to bring in.
I mean, they're going to do what they do, but same time, you know, you may have to feature on certain things that a guy does when he gets in the game, but they also, you understand one thing, they know their own tendencies too, so they can change it up too. But I think both guys, Watson's a little more dynamic with his legs, but Stout is still a good runner. And I think both guys can create a lot of problems in a lot of different ways, very much the way Taj Boyd did. I mean, and they did so many things with him, so it's kind of like there's tons of things. And they'll always have a new wrinkle, especially with the week off. Chad does a wonderful job. So, I mean, we're going to have our hands full. I mean, we're going to have to keep great leverage on him to still be able to have enough in the box and then still be able to play the pass with, you know, sometimes one-on-one, but other times you got to get help over the top. I mean, you know, you got to try and pick and choose and, you know, it becomes a chess match and a guessing game. And sometimes, like I say, sometimes people think sometimes you just guess right.
What does Chad Morris do that puts so much pressure on the defense?
I think first of all, it's no huddle. I mean, just the key to no huddle for anything is the speed in which they do it with, because it's about, we do it so many times, and you may know we can do it, but we can do it faster than you can get ready for it. It's hard to simulate. I think that's the first thing of no huddle. Jeff Malzahn, all those guys that do those offenses, if you look at it, there's not tons of complexity as far as other people may do more schemes, but how fast they do them and how well they do them. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying they don't do a lot of things, but then they're very multi-formational, very multi-personnel based. So all those different things factor in with the speed of what they do, and then they have their well coached. They got great athletes. They can throw it, catch it, run it, and block, and all combined is very effective.
Jimbo, this might be an oversimplification, but the Atlantic Division comes down really to the Florida State-Clemson game the last few years. How do you view the significance of the Clemson game versus some other conference games?
I mean, I count them all. I mean, it's significant in that, like you say, we've both been at the top, but you can't put more emphasis on it than you do another, because at the end of the day, they're all one win, one loss. I mean, I think when everyone learns that, I mean, I think there's no doubt about that, but it's a game in which you like to be at Florida State to play in because of the ramifications and the publicity and the national attention it brings to be on that kind of stage and that kind of atmosphere. I think it's very relevant.
You mentioned it's you two at the top in the Atlantic, whether it's the off season or throughout, you know, the early.
No, I say there's some other teams coming on. You've been watching that. You watch Boston College and NC State, and there's a lot of other teams in the ACC playing great football right now.
Do you cater what you do schematically, you know, even during the off season to make sure you're prepared for Clemson, like you said?
I do it. We do it to all opponents. We go through all opponents and do things in the off season that are schematically that help us against different schemes that are different and things that we think are very different that we don't see a lot of or have good plans for. I mean, we try to spend a lot of times on those things, offensively, defensively, and special teams.
A game like last year puts a bad taste in the team's mouth. You saw it for your team with NC State last year, really wanting to get back. What does that do for a team, and what does that mean for Clemson coming in?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Clemson's going to come in and play well. I mean, but at the end, that team's over with. This team will want to come in and play well and have a great standing, not because maybe because of last year a little bit, but because they want to win and they know what's in front of them. I mean, I think you know, and they have pride too. Like I say, it's a great program with a great coach, and they have a lot of pride, and I know they're going to come in ready to play football.
What did you see both good and bad when you looked at the Citadel film?
I'm sorry.
What did you see both good and bad when you look back at the last couple of weeks?
On the option, sometimes we weren't getting in the alley, and some of that was our backer, not our outsider end, so we had to play our backer over the top inside, wasn't getting there, our middle backer. And the same scheme we had played at Georgia Tech a couple of years ago and played, and our middle backer was getting to a lot of plays, and got cut off a little bit. Improved tackling with the ones, I think, bent a little bit, but still only give up 176 yards, played well. Offensively, very efficient, ran the ball very effectively, got good schemes through and caught the ball pretty well, had a couple critical drops, but still learning and, you know, much better on third down. On offense, defense got to learn to get off the field a little bit. But they hit some good things and some option plays on third. It's just different than you play against normally. So, but there's no, we got to make plays and get guys in position, which we could have gotten there. We just got to play better and coach better on all three phases. Special teams was much better, I thought. We didn't have a chance to cover kicks, but Roberto kicked them. They had a chance. He hit about 4 of them when we wanted, about that 2-yard depth where they normally come out, but they elected not to come out. And I thought our coverage teams were much quicker, much faster, and our hang time on our kicks was much better. So, from that standpoint, we got better, and hopefully we'll continue over the off week and now.
Beasley, what makes him such an effective player?
Well, one is pure athleticism. The guy's a very instinctive football player. He's very, not only quick, but powerful. Can change direction, got body quickness, can run the faster, but if you play in the run, he can transition speed into power very quickly. And I say he's very instinctive when he plays. He's relentless. He's a very, very stand up, get down, move around. Very, very good football player.
Some of your offensive linemen just talked about, they've been playing against some of those defensive linemen for 3 years. What does that do?
No, I said 7, remember, since I've been here. Seems like it. Well, you get to know a guy, it becomes a battle. And comes to check, when you play against guys every year, all right, he knows what I do, he knows here, and they'll have some little nuances and studies, and it becomes very challenging in a lot of ways because, like I say, usually you play against somebody once or twice. Very rarely does linemen start for 3 and 4 years on the defense and offensive lines. And so that way it is very, as I say, can become a chess match to a point about how things go and learning each other and studying each other. But there's also a great bond, I'm not saying bond, but a great level of respect once you play against guys at that level because, if they start that long and you start that long, both of them are pretty daggone good players.
Jimbo, Legway's had a few days to practice now. How is he holding up?
Doing better. We're getting him back in. I don't know if he'll go this weekend. We'll see how this week goes and after this weekend and things, but very pleased with his progress and where he's at right now. He's ahead of schedule.
Where are you playing him at right now?
I play him at linebacker in special teams.
Was the Georgia tape, especially beneficial or maybe more than other teams considering Jeremy's there and you guys do a lot of similar
defensively?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll know the calls and what they did and can relate to what worked, what didn't work, you know what I'm saying? And so like I say, second half it worked, but the second half I say what Georgia really did was get great field position in the game. They dominated the field position. Clemson stayed backed up a lot. Again, like I say, it's hard to call your offense when you're backed up constantly. And I think just that Georgia won the field position. The first half, Clemson really move the football. So, you see what they're capable of doing and getting hot. But it's like anybody. If you lose momentum or you get pinned behind the chains or you get penalties or you get field position issues, it all becomes big. But I think it's very good film just because of what can and can't work or what the thought process was going behind a lot of the calls.
Jimbo, I know you don't know.
Can that go both ways too, since they faced that defense before now?
Oh yeah, no doubt. How people play you and what they think and how they're going to look at you, no doubt. It all, once it gets out there, it's equal to everybody.
Jim, we're not speaking to Clemson's quarterbacks directly, but just, switching quarterbacks in the middle of the game, how delicate is that to when you pull the guy or, let a guy get a seat?
Well, I think that all depends on the team. Coach Bowden did it back here. I remember the first undefeated teams he had, Wally Woodham and Jimmy Jordan. I think it depends on the team dynamic and how the team accepts it and where the team is at that particular time as much as then once you do it, you get into that, I think it is very, because, you got a guy with a hot hand, you say, okay, you're going to play in the third series. That guy goes out there and goes 6 for 6, and you're going, man, I don't want to pull this guy out of the game. That always is a challenge. So, it's easy for people to sit back and say, but for a coach, I think it's very tough because of flows of the game. But other people do it very effectively. I'm not, Chad and Dabo definitely know what they're doing, so they've been very effective with it so far.
What impressed you about Deshaun, even whether it's the first few games and even coming out of high school?
Well, first of all, you see the pure athleticism and the arm talent. The guy, it can really throw. He can throw the football. He's a natural thrower of the football. He's a winner. He won state championships. He was the guy who had the team on his back, whether it was running, throwing. He could. Some guys can really win and manage the team and do things and play within the system. Other guys can take things on their back and make plays with his leg, make plays with his arm, make plays with his mind. Great kid. I met him a few times once and was very impressed. Tremendous young man. Then you see the abundance of talent, how well he's picked it up so far. He's played tremendous. So, but at the same time, I think Stout's done a great job. I think he's played very well also for them. You watch the film, very productive.
With Sammy gone, what have you seen from their other wide receivers?
A lot of size. You go back to Sharon Peak. Sharon, if people forget, was recruited as highly or more highly than all of them. He was a big-time guy. Mike Williams, and of course, we know Artavius Scott and Adam Humphreys, and once they had, Kit was a guy we recruited last year, just like Scott was. They're big, they're long, but they also got quick, fast guys and great ball. Typical. The names and things have changed, and the number, but They still look the same and play the same.
How much does it help you when you guys, I mean, recruiting, you see a lot of the same guys that they see. How much does that help you guys when you
Well, I think it at least gives you a general idea of what, how fast is that guy really? Is that guy really a tough guy? Can he do this? And then when you evaluate guys like that, at least it gives you some perspective. But still, they change because how their coach becomes different. You know what I'm saying? Once you get to college and how well you're coached, and their girls are coached extremely well. So, from that standpoint, but it does give you some. Anytime you're familiar with a guy or know a guy.
Let's get Tom D'Angelo's question here. Tom.
Let Tom listen a while.
Hey, Jimbo. Hey, I think you asked about Vic Beasley earlier. How good a game did Cam have against them last year, and how success he had against Vic, and how much can that help Cam this year?
Well, I think it was one that you can play against the guy, but two, I think we did a good job. The guys beside him, Josue and those guys did a good job when they had chances to get help, and I think the backs did a good job chipping. I mean, Vic's not a guy you can go out and say, hey, well, you got him. I mean, you're going to have to give him different looks and do different things to him at different times to create those situations. So I think it does help that we were successful, but also that, that was Cam did a phenomenal, I don't mean taking anything, I mean, Cam really did play well, but it was a collective effort because that guy's a heck of a football player.
And then one thing also going back, you talked about the importance of this game, how it was really the winner has determined who plays in the championship game. Coaches, is there something to rivalries, and does this become a little bit more, has Clemson become, up there with the FSU's best rival?
Oh, I don't think there's no doubt. I think and you go back in the history of the game, from Punt Ruski to all the different things that went on, from the Bowden Bowls, and Coach Bowden, I think, had his 300th win in one of those games, and Clemson's had some great moments. I mean, it's the '89 team. They had a great team then. Different times. I mean, Clemson's a great football program with great tradition, and they're ranked highly. And when you're in your conference, those are naturally going to become rivalries because of that both teams are very successful in fighting for that top spot.
Thanks, Jimbo.
Thank you, Tom.
You talked about the speed just of Clemson's offense. With all those young guys on the defensive line, how do you guys prepare for that at practice, just getting them in and out of the game?
Well, we do it all. I hate to say that, but it's what Oklahoma State did. It's become more the norm than it is, that everybody else doesn't do it. So you practice against it so much, but it's still it still doesn't take away from the challenges of it and the execution of it.
In Oklahoma State, you obviously didn't get a whole bunch of guys in on that defensive line. Do you feel more comfortable with some of those guys?
We do now. After the first, I keep saying first games are totally different. People don't understand that. I mean, it's hard to comprehend because you still, even from your veteran, they haven't gotten into the groove of playing, and the first games are, as I say, Forrest Gumps. They're like a box of chocolates. You'll never know what you're going to get, even when you think you know what kind of chocolate it is. And I think it makes, times you become hesitant, and we were in good shape, and then it got going tight, and you don't want to do it. And, those are things we can't let happen. We got to go ahead and play the guys, which we did last week, and we'll continue to do this week. So I think that rotate, I think we'll cure that problem. We have to. I mean, you can't go play that many snaps otherwise.
Some of the things you guys did defensively, scheme-wise against them last year, personnel and things, are you able to do the same types of things with the players you have on this year's roster?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can, and I think we have, but they'll do things different. They'll be ready for those, so I think you have to make adjustments yourself. But, I still think from what we were doing, and I'm just talking about not just against them, generally in defense,
And what you said about the opener, and then following up with a team that ran a triple option, is it hard to know what this defense is yet, or
well, I think it's hard to know what any team is in America. I think all teams. Did anybody watch Saturday? Does anybody know what anybody is yet? Huh? Think about the games where tight games that really shouldn't have been. Teams that had won big and then got beat, or this early in the season, I think it's very. I'll put it this way: if it was stock market. You were putting money in the stock market, I'd kind of hold my money out on everybody till I kind of got a little later in the season on it. Because I think we're all teams are still a work in progress and developing who it is and what it is and what's going on. And I'm not saying that for us. I think that's around college football. And I think if you didn't watch Saturday's games, of all the things that jumped out at me, that jumped out at me as much as anything.
Can you kind of get a sense during a bye week of how the team's progressing when there's no one else to
Yeah, I do, because I think how it works and how physical. That was one of our better bye weeks. We really got that. We had some hard, physical, tough practices, and I was very pleased with how we worked. And I could see when we started, then we do the drills and individual stuff, and then we go against each other, some good on good. And then even the scout team work. I see our scout team guys getting better, which gives us better looks, allows us to do things. And then when we would go against each other, you could just see when you watch practice. fundamental things that we weren't doing the first couple weeks as consistently got better.
Speaking of progress, how's Carlos progressed from that first game to now?
Good. He's doing well. I mean, I didn't think he was drastically bad in any of those games. I think he'd keep getting better and better. He's doing a real good job.
A few of their guys have talked about taking motivation from last season and the need to kind of atone. Can that factor into a game at all?
No doubt. I mean, your attitude and your emotions and the way you come with a mindset, there is no doubt. I mean, that's as critical to sports as anything else. I mean, there's no doubt, and we're going to have one also. So hopefully that'll be two with good mindsets. That makes for a great football game. That makes for an emotional, physical, nasty football game. And I without a doubt, maybe as much as anything you do X's and O's or physically. The mind's not right. It's hard for the body to follow.
Jimbo, do you get a chance on an off week? Are you watching a lot of football games on Saturday?
I got to watch some this weekend because Trey couldn't do much. So I sat there and spent time with him. Got to watch Ethan play flag football a little bit. And then
Are you peeking ahead to like Louisville was on and Florida was on?
Yeah, I watched parts of different one of those games. Yeah, I did. Because I was in Trey. At times I could do away with it. Between that and a couple of westerns, we had some Big Jake was on, a couple others. We were flipping back and forth. Some of our westerns that we like to watch. He does too, though. He wants flipping back too. He's a poor kid likes what I like. He have a heck of a life. And he was sitting there because he couldn't do a lot. He was saying, sometimes we'd go hunting. We'd like to do hunting on, go do something hunting wise or something on those weekends. But he couldn't move around too much and he's in that practice, so we just kind of sat around the house and did that. But you buzz all those games.
Right.
I'm curious for a little bit. Tell you what, Virginia, those guys all look good. Good football teams. BC, all those teams. NC State played extremely well. I mean, a lot of teams. I mean, it's going to be a good league this year.
You guys have run the ball well against them the last few years. Is there a key against that kind of defense in terms of like what you have to do to establish that?
No, I think you got to be able to block them. I mean, they're good people, and you got to have an attitude, and you got to be physical, and you got to go, and you got to stay committed to it. And I think, but also being able to run it against them. But you got to be able to, because we have been able to throw it too. I think, and we've been able to throw it because we've been able to run it. I mean, I think it works both ways, and I think we just got to be able to get hats to a hat and go. Because I mean, you can't be one-dimensional against them. I don't think there's any one key though. I really don't.
Seeing the success that Georgia had against Clemson, is their level of comfortability coming to the game?
Excuse me?
Seeing the success that Georgia had against Clemson, is there a level of comfortability coming to the game?
I wish you could carry it from week to week. No, I mean, they've made adjustments. They'll be better. And as I said, Georgia had some great things, but there's a lot of those plays. They had guys there to make plays. Just missed a tackle, had a guy on block, you know what I mean, or in it nothing. Guy broke, and that back at Georgia ain't bad. That guy's pretty strong. Trying hard to get that guy on the ground a little bit. I mean, he's pretty good. So, I mean, there's no comfort level. I promise you that. We're gonna have our hands full. We'll have to scratch, fight, and claw for everything we get.
Did you get a chance to see Clint on Saturday?
I sure did. Well, what an outstanding game. Very proud of him. I know his dad. He won't say it up there. He wants, but I bragged on him in front of the staff. So he will. But his dad is. I mean, how well he's played. I mean, he's doing a great job. You see when he's healthy and what he's capable of. And I'm extremely happy for him. Always knew he'd be. I mean, he was a good quarterback. I mean, and very proud. And that guy's worked his tail off. Heck of a day. Hadn't had a bad day yet.
Could have another one next week. Next week they play Oklahoma, don't they?
Yeah, they've always played Oklahoma pretty good too. Both years have been some great games. Last year was too. Oklahoma's got a good football team. I see them. They got a really good football team. There's a lot of good football teams out there. I think there's a lot of guys that on any given Saturday you got to be ready to play.
Does it seem like that more than ever now?
No doubt. I think that more guys playing. There's more quarterbacks. There's more ability, more skilled players. The game's being spread out. There's more guys and all that 7-on-7 stuff, so there's more great quarterbacks. And there's scholarship limitations. I mean, it's not like those old days when there was 105 scholarships. Think about this. When all your great teams got 20 more scholarships, what that did to everybody else. Put that in perspective. Say your top 5 teams of every conference. That's 100 players that the other part of the conference didn't get. You see what I'm saying? I mean, and that is more parity right now. Coaching is good, but the amount of skill guys and people that are out there and the way you throw the ball around now that everybody can spread and the quarterbacks have developed so quickly and different things. And has a chance for anybody to win on every given Saturday, excuse me. Well, now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They play on every day of the week now, don't we?
Jimbo, the only offensive lineman that didn't start last year's game was Austin. How's he doing? How would you evaluate him?
I'm gonna tell you what, I think he's playing well. I mean, he's had a couple bad plays, but no more than anybody else. He's played well. He's not as big as everybody else, but he's 295 pounds. We act like 295's a midget. I mean, guy's done a good job. Got beat on a couple things, but so hadn't Trey Jackson, so hadn't Josue, so hadn't Cam. I mean, he hasn't done anything that all those guys haven't done. I think he's filling into his role very well, making all the calls, been very efficient on protections, very efficient on his run calls, very smart guy. You know, people forget he started, remember Maryland last year, BC 2-3, Miami, he started 4, 5, 6 games here. We've won and done well with him since he's been here. I think he's progressing very nicely.
Coach, how's Jameson's last couple weeks of practice been, and more specifically, how's the chemistry going with some of the younger guys?
I think we've been throwing and catching the ball very well. You saw him last game. I think he's putting them where they're getting where he's supposed to be. And see, even with a drop, you say, "Oh my!" But the guys where he's supposed to be, the timing of the balls there, those happen. You know what I mean? That happens. But where they're supposed to be, how they're getting there, the timing, the rhythm, the confidence. That's when I'm making the right decision, going to the right guy. Guy getting open, is he getting? They're going to finish a catch or two. One of those guys is O'Leary, and that's the first drop I can remember him having, and I can't tell you when. That was a tough play. Guy got his arm in there, but you know. And the other drop was a shuffle pass. We had Kermit. He'd been 5'6". He made that. Like I said, I tease him all the time. But no, I mean that was tough. It was a tough play on him. But I mean, I think their chemistry has gotten very good, especially going against who we're going against every day.
Yeah, but there's been a few more catches by the backs in the first 2 games, really, than what you did last year. Is that a function of just having backs that are very capable there, or
No doubt.
James checking down more of those guys?
Well, I think he's checking down to him. I think Reeds are taking them there. I think the one-on-ones, and I think they're very athletic. And you go back, Chris Thompson used to catch a lot of balls for us. I remember I was rewatching the Clemson game from 2 or 3 years ago. There was a game, I think he had about 6 or 7 that night. He ran for about $180 and had about 90 receiving. You know what I mean? I mean, so I think in that regard, last year you might have saw some a little more 3 or 4 wides at times, but you know, those guys out of the backfield, they're dynamic and they can match on linebackers, and Reeds have taken us there, and I think their capabilities are there. I think those guys have really good ball skills that way. But last year's group was solid too. Freeman, Wilder. You go back and look, those guys caught, they was sneaky how they caught balls different times.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank y'all.
Thanks, good.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks.